This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. One of the things we've been enjoying doing a lot is kind of just reacting to takes that other people have about the Cleveland Browns. One of these takes is from Maurice Jones-Drew. He recently has done a rookie season grade of some of the Browns players. One of those players, obviously, it really matters what Maurice Jones-Drew thinks, or at least it matters a little bit more, is Quinshon Judkins, given that Maurice Jones-Drew is a legendary running back, and we hope that the fate is similar for Quinshon Judkins. So let's see what Maurice Jones-Drew has to say about Quinshon Judkins' rookie year and what we can project going forward with Quinshon, given that he's going to be the most important player to the 2026 Browns offense. Before we get into that, got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 sports pick app. The app is really easy to use. For player picks, just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Rather just pick teams, PrizePicks has that now too. Just pick the winner, spread, or total in any game or fight. PrizePicks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Plus, you can even follow me on the app at Quinn_C. Tell my picks, one click, and follow your friends too. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use the promo code HMA when you sign up. That's right. PrizePicks just switched up their offer, so there's no better time to join. Lock in and win with that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win with your first $5 or up lineup.
Quinshon Judkins, another, sadly, Maurice, an ankle injury for a rookie running back. It was like a thing this year. Cam Scadaboo and Judkins and Amarian Hampton, and it's just these guys going down who we saw some really, really good promise for. When he went down, he had 827 rushing yards, 998 scrimmage yards, both second among rookies when he went down in week 16. So he was rolling. And the thing that I heard out of Cleveland was, look at what he went and did this rookie year, and he didn't play a snap of training camp. Not a snap of training camp. So they are excited about what they saw.
Not just not a snap of training camp. I think it's worth noting. He didn't practice or do training camp for what? That's like 6 months, 6 weeks. And then he came in week 3. So he almost missed a whole nother training camp on top of that. He came in basically fresh off of whatever the league was doing with him at the time, the exempt list thing, the contract thing, right? Had a couple of weird things going on in his offseason last year and jumped in and had a good game versus the Baltimore Ravens. Another thing to consider is that, yeah, he had the ankle injury, had the leg injury. It seems like he's come back strong from that. And it seems like he's going to have a full offseason. Like, he was pretty much a full participant in OTAs. I imagine in training camp he's going to be somewhat limited, but he was always going to be somewhat limited due to his importance in camp. But it seems like he is going to get that full training camp experience on top of already doing what he's already been doing, on top of an improved offensive line, and hopefully improve run game design from, Travis Weiser and Todd Monken coming over from Baltimore.
Out of the rookie running back out of Ohio State. Initial thoughts on what you saw from Judd?
Yeah, I believe in certain situations you can get immediately better in the NFL from college. I thought at Ohio State they had Travion Henderson, who did a lot of stuff, and Judkins kind of did the dirty work, and he didn't get to showcase all of his ability at Ohio State. The Browns got him. He misses all training camp. I love the fact that he stayed in shape. I love the fact that he came in, he was ready to roll. I forget what game it was, but he jumped out immediately, right? Yep. Big runs, catching the ball out of the backfield, blocking, explosiveness. Was the lone bright spot of this Cleveland Browns offense during that time with Dylan Gabriel there and all those things. And so to me, he surpassed a lot of my expectations. And I always speak highly and try to think highly of running backs. But again, I just thought he didn't have quick feet. I didn't see the burst like I saw with the other guys. And then all of a sudden he gets to Cleveland and he has quick feet. All of a sudden he gets to Cleveland, there's the burst. There's the physicality. There's making people miss. Great vision, seeing the holes, all those things. I would say the only thing that I would knock, really not him, but them, is they didn't give it to him enough. I felt like he should have carried the ball way more. He should have touched the ball way more than he did in those games. And he did everything. And if obviously you can see the future, he would have been probably one for me. Him, and then we'll talk about another guy who would have been up there as well. Because I think Genty, his production ended up being really well towards the end. But what Judkins did for the Browns was amazing.
Wow, so that's high praise. I mean, he's talking about he would have been up there at 1. There was a running back like Genty went top 10 this year, right? So real high praise there. I did the Judkins draft pick is one where I give the front office and the coaching staff, especially running backs coach, a great deal of credit for, because this was not the obvious choice when they made it, right? Sometimes your team will pick a player, that player will be good, and it's the obvious choice. Sometimes your team will go out on a limb and take a player and get a little bit ridiculed for it, right? And when the Browns took Quinshon over Travion, over a lot of different running backs, there was a lot of people who had a lot to say about that. And the Browns trusted their evaluation. They trusted their projections. They trusted what they saw, what they interviewed, what they did in the workout. And I always caution this, right? As much work as I like to do during pre-draft, or people who watch this channel like to do during pre-draft, or even people who are experts in the space do during pre-draft, you always have to control for the fact that you don't get the chance to interview these people as frequently as the NFL does. You don't get the background research that the NFL does. And whenever you do, you're only getting bits and pieces of that background research. And 3, you don't have access to these private workouts where perception can change drastically based on what teams are seeing in these private workouts, right? And I think Quinshon is somebody where when they worked him out, they saw some traits that are pretty unusual for running backs: his size, his vision, his patience, his feet. And they had a clear vision for him in this offense. That's great drafting, right? It's easy to take the guys that everybody thinks are going to be good, right? You know, you take Peyton Manning, number 1 overall. Nobody's putting you to the general manager Hall of Fame for that. But these are the kind of picks where it's like, wow, you kind of went out on a limb there. You didn't go crazy on a limb, but you kind of went out on a limb there. You had a vision. You went with that vision. That vision ended up working out for you. And, you know, I think I keep wanting to say Steve Smith because it says it on the top of the graphic here, but Maurice Jones-Drew makes that point of being impressed by Quinshon because of those things. Another thing with Quinshon, right? It wasn't just that without training camp, he had a good game versus the Ravens. The week after that versus the Green Bay Packers, he legitimately was responsible for the Browns winning that game. Like single-handedly was responsible for the Browns winning that football game against the Green Bay Packers. So that was a contending team. They still had Micah Parsons healthy. Got to remember that, right? That was a different level of the Packers. I was a championship contender at the time, right? And Quinshon in his second game with just 1 week of practice was able to get to that level. It also goes to show you some dudes, you're always going to hear excuses because they can't produce, right? Other people just produce in spite of those excuses, right? Everybody's going to have excuses not to produce. There's always going to be reasons. I've covered this team forever. I've seen all the excuses for why young players can't produce and why it's not their fault. But ultimately, the dogs, the ones who are going to have long careers, even if the circumstances are tough, they find a way to make it clear to you that they're special. The ones that end up being duds, those are the ones we talk about for 3 years. Oh, well, he didn't have this right. Oh, well, he didn't have this perfect for him. Oh, well, the coaching staff wasn't perfect for him. Oh, well, and then it's 5 years later and they're playing in the UFL, right? So it just goes to show you, right? Dog's going to eat, regardless of what's out there on the table. And Quinshon certainly established himself as a dog. Let's continue.
Remember, the Browns had finished the season. Their leading passer was a rookie. Their leading rusher, which was Judkins, was a rookie. Their leading receiver was Harold Fannin, the tight end, a rookie. Their leading tackler was Schlesinger, a rookie. Like, they ended up doing all these things. It's a young core that he was a part of, and I'm kind of curious, did you learn anything from him? Because I already heard the compliment, but it's like he missed all this time, and then when he was able to get the opportunity, he was like, watch. And he just like took it. Right? Like I always, when I see certain guys do that, going like, they're not handed it right from the jump. There's circumstances that went on with Judkins during the offseason that forced him not to participate and everything. But it's like, once he got there, he was like, I got something, like, I got time to make up. I got to make up for what I missed. And he took it like immediately.
Well, he was a professional. I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of times that word is thrown around. I watched Man on Fire the other night and they were like, I'm a professional. I remember like, no, you don't know what a professional is. Right. And I think in our game, being a professional is being ready for when your number is called. Yes. I thought Judkins did that. Right. Like, I remember holding out. And again, these stories I always can relate to, and obviously in my way, but I remember holding out and then coming back. Right. And I remember the first game, they were like, are you sure you're going to be ready to play? I was like, bro, this is football. Like, I've always played football. Like, I'm in shape. I'll be fine. Needless to say, before I broke my foot, I was leading the league in rushing after 4 or 5 weeks, right? And so being a professional means a lot to me. And so you don't know how these kids will plan out and do certain things because I don't know them personally. I don't get to see them and have a conversation with them. But what I will say is that he showed professionalism by coming in, being ready, getting the ball, and then jumping on the scene, right? And when he jumped on the scene, again, he showed everything that he showed more with the Browns than he showed in college. And that to me is everything.
Yeah, just want to piggyback off that point that Maurice Jones-Drew was making, kind of talking about something I said before we even cut to that clip, right? If you're watching enough football and you follow enough football as a fan, you will hear a lot of excuses for players. You will hear a lot of reasons why guys aren't as successful as they should be. Oh, they didn't get the practice reps. Oh, they didn't get the kind of treatment in training camp that they want. I mean, we hear this all the time when it comes to the quarterback position. Shedeur Sanders is the new flavor of the month when it comes to this conversation. But, we did this with Dorian Townsend-Robinson before it was Shedeur Sanders, where people were making excuses for the fact that he wasn't ready for a start in Baltimore. By blaming the coaching staff. And then we played him again and he wasn't ready, right? And then we played him again and he wasn't ready. And we kept playing him and he wasn't ready, right? At some point, either you're ready or you're not. Either you're professional or you're not, right? Either you have excuses or you have success, and that's not to say that I'm not going to care if certain factors have affected your ability to be successful. Like, obviously, we'll talk about that. But there is a level of success that you want to see out of anybody, regardless of what that situation is. And I think Quinshon really demonstrates that, right? Harold Fannin demonstrates that, where, they came into an imperfect situation, but they were able to produce. They were able to make it clear to you that these guys are not your average players, right? Even in a tough situation, like being a tight end on a team whose offensive identity has been very limited and whose ability to throw the ball is awful, right? Or being Quinshon Judkins and you're running the ball into the worst run-blocking offensive line that I've seen in the NFL over the last 3 years. Everybody has circumstances and hurdles that they have to overcome, but the players that are worth it, the players that get things done, the players that matter in the most important moments in the game, those are the ones who figure it out. You know what I mean? Bad habits have the best excuses. I don't know if I've said that on this channel before, but that is something that I live by, right? If you have a bad habit in your life, I imagine you have a great excuse for why that bad habit exists. You know, because oftentimes what allows a bad habit to stick around is that it has a great excuse. You know, oh, well, I do this because of that, right? But if you want the bad habit to go away, you got to ignore the fact that there's a good reason that it exists. You just got to attack it. And Quinshon, despite having awful run blocking all year, found a way to adjust his game to get the most out of that offensive line. That's why I'm super excited about Quinshon.
But Nick Chubb would destroy people. He was averaging 5 yards a carry. It was insane. And Judkins reminds me he literally is a younger version of Nick Chubb, right? Just came out of Ohio State instead of Georgia, but he's a one-cut guy. The downhill runners are one-cut guys. They're not going to do too many jump cuts and things like that. They're going to put their foot in the ground and they're going to go. I think Judkins is more athletic than Amari Hampton. I think he can go sideways a little bit more. I think his lateral quickness, and that's what I mean athletic is he can jump and make catches. And he can torque he can do different things, lateral movement. He can do different things that I think Amari Hampton would struggle with, but he's just as big or similar size, right? And to me, that type of athleticism paired up with that running game makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and he's part of this young core, like I brought up, and I wonder how much he helps if they go with Shedeur Sanders in 2026. How much does Judkins help his growth in year two as a starting quarterback? And my understanding is they do believe he is going to be good to go, most likely for camp, which would be great. And so he does get that camp in year two.
He had the same injury as Fred Warner. Fred Warner's back after 96 days.
Fred Warner's out there sprinting around at practice before the divisional round game.
If he's not back for training camp, we got to go talk to somebody because that's crazy.
Well, no, he's going to be. He'll be back.
Yeah, I mean, like the comp to Nick Chubb is the ultimate compliment here in Cleveland, right? But it just goes to show you, right, what we saw with Quinshon. It wasn't some kind of like, oh, we're only excited because the team's bad kind of thing. Like, no, we're excited about this dude because he put legitimately exciting stuff on tape, and even got somebody like Maurice Jones-Drew, who was not high on Quinshon Judkins coming into the draft, right? And a lot of people weren't. And I think they make the point clear, like he did not demonstrate this at Ohio State. Like I was higher than most on Quinshon, but I wasn't as high as I probably should have been if I knew that Quinshon had some of the stuff in his bag that he was ready to show once he came to Cleveland, right? Like he's basically transformed himself, or I don't even know if he transformed himself. I feel like he just always was capable of this. And then they bring up the point with, the quarterback play, right? Whether it's Shedeur, whatever's left of Deshaun Watson, and then looking forward to the future, maybe a draft pick or a new quarterback in 2027, right? What Quinshon provides is a floor to the offense, right? I think it's going to be important this year to establish that he can give this offensive floor. I think part of the offensive improvement for this team, a huge chunk of it is going to be run game success rate, right? How much more successful is the Browns' run game per down than it was last year? I think it needs to take a huge leap. It was the worst in the NFL last year. It needs to go from worst in the NFL, I think, to about mid-table, around 20th, right? If we can make that leap there, we put a floor on this offense. If we put a floor on this offense, it makes it easier to have a quarterback be out there and get more reps, right? Because the problem that any quarterback who's going to play for the Cleveland Browns, whether it's Shedeur, whether it's Deshaun Watson, whether it's a rookie in 2027, the biggest problem that quarterback is going to have is how that quarterback can stay on the field. And part of being able to develop a quarterback is how long can you have that guy on the field learning while also winning games, right? A huge part of the development of somebody like Tom Brady, who everybody loves to bring up as an outlier whenever we're talking about late round guys, right? Huge part to his development was that team around him was so good early on that it allowed Tom Brady to stay on the field despite not being who we think of as Tom. And then eventually Tom caught up, around 06, 07. That's where Tom makes the leap and kind of shreds all that system quarterback narrative stuff, right? But before that, that was the narrative about Tom, and it was kind of true. 03 Tom Brady, 04 Tom Brady, that's not the TB12 we be thinking about, right? TB12 ain't really exist until Randy Moss got there. And even then, people are like, oh, he's getting carried by Randy Moss. And then he did all the stuff in the 2010s that he did, and people just gave that up, right? But that's kind of been what it's been in how you develop them, right? If you want Shador to develop, he has to stay on the field. And if you want him to stay on the field, the offense has to have a floor, right? Quinshon being able to provide that floor will give the Browns the best chance of fixing this quarterback problem in the short term and long term. It's a huge part of that, in my opinion. And I think a huge thing that they're looking up, a huge sign of progress that they're hoping to make this year. I'm not going to get too caught up into the results of this season for the Browns. I'm not going to get too caught up in the win-loss record or the playoff chase with them. This is the kind of stuff I want to see improve. I want to see them lay a groundwork for success and excitement in 2027. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be anything to watch this year. Maybe they can make a surprise run and shock the NFL. And I'll be down for that, obviously. But, as far as my just base expectations, I want them to establish some kind of baseline, some kind of floor for this offense so that they can take that next step in the offseason and then maybe address quarterback if it needs to be addressed, and then get to where we've been wanting this team to get to since the end of the 2023 season.
My point is he'll have a full camp.
Yeah.
Is explosive risk and is not appropriate for everyone.
Players, so much
and swap firm. All right, so let's throw out some grades here for Quinshon Judkins. Between the tackles here, what do we got?
I'd give him an A.
Okay.
I thought he did well between the tackles.
Love it. Okay. Explosive plays.
He became an explosive player, so much so that they gave him wildcat stuff on the goal line. So I give him an A in that situation.
Okay. They need to work on, and I know Andrew Berry and company, I'm not saying anything they don't know. We got to get some youth on that offensive line, some other guys up front there.
Now, I think this was recorded before the draft, but the Browns did address that.
For this offense.
We got to get that
how
big
about
tackle healthy, too. God, Lee.
Oh.
Blocks
Another
out the
Ohio
sun,
State
but
guy.
can't play.
The Ohio State
It's
guy.
interesting. They're talking about
Jo-
DeJuan Jones, right? But now DeJuan Jones, the overhaul on the offensive line is so significant that somebody like DeJuan Jones kind of an afterthought to this offensive line now because he's fighting to be a swing tackle. Now, I mean, that just shows you the amount of resources they put into this offensive line.
Juan Jones, I think it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hands. I think he's a decent catcher.
Yeah, I would say he's a B plus guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
again, I didn't see him play a lot of wide receiver. I didn't think
Yeah.
I didn't think they asked him to do those things. But I would I think he had good hands. I mean, I saw him catch the ball a little bit. He looked explosive when he caught it. Like he'd catch it and turn and make guys miss in the screen game. He wasn't no Harold Fannin, which again I think they knocked that one out of the park better than anybody.
Pass protection. It's something that's taught a lot at Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's emphasized there with these backs that have come out of there. I mean, Zeke was outstanding out of Ohio State in terms of pass protection. We do one also on Travion Henderson, so check that out. And he was great at Ohio State. What did you think of Quinshon Judkins as
I thought he was an A- B plus guy. I thought he did what he was supposed to do. I thought that he fit the protection right. He knew where he was supposed to be. And he blocked. It wasn't a lot of missed protections or different things like that. And like I say, majority of these guys, they all actually took well to blocking. It wasn't an issue, if that makes sense. And so that to me is what makes me feel really good because that's how I got on the field in the NFL, was being a third down back for blocking and then getting on there. So much so that I used to call myself the sixth lineman just to piss me off because I would block so much in games. But that's what it is.
Did you hang out with the offensive linemen when you did
all
that?
the time?
You were just rolling with those guys, weren't you?
That's
what I thought.
Maurice, you're gonna take on whoever's blitzing. It could be anybody, and then you just have to be in sync with the O-line. Like, we used to have O-line meetings, and I'd be in there going over third down protections with him.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And you just be in there.
And one, he
a
has
full off season.
Yeah, he has a healthy off season, get healthy, and then go through training camp. And I think, again, this is more of an incomplete because I want to see him get a full training camp. He excelled in without having all the time and the coaching that was needed. How much better can you be with the new staff, full off season, completely healthy, and then with a healthy offensive line, right? Like, their line was tormented. So I would say growth is incomplete just because there were so many variables. I mean, he played with 3 different quarterbacks?
I'm trying to three.
No Flacco,
I don't know if he played with all 4.
Fedor, how
played with 3.
Growth is, he has room to grow for sure. I don't think this is where he's going to end, but I just need to see what he does starting next year.
Got it. Okay, so then overall grade for Quinshon Judkins and JD is what?
A+.
Hey, boom. Let's go. A+. Let's go.
I thought that fit, and probably the last person that will do fit might have been the best one.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a good tease.
All right, so there you have it. Maurice Jones-Drew, who was not the highest on Quinshon based on what he's seen from him this year. He has him in his top 2 conversation of running backs in that entire draft class. And remember, that 2025 draft class loaded with running backs, man. Like, so many young running backs came out of that class, showed themselves that rookie year last year. So that's tremendous. That's a great sign going forward. And given that the Browns, I think, are pretty much building this offense in the short term around Quinshon Judkins, it's a very exciting thing for this season for us to watch. But let me know your thoughts. Show me them in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.